let's take a trip back in time to when the great Chola dynasty ruled South India. They were a big deal from the 9th to the 13th century. They left a huge impact on history. The Chola dynasty was really strong, rich in culture, and amazing at sea travel. They had a big impact, not just in their own area, but also in other places in South India. Today, we're on an adventure to learn more about this amazing dynasty. We'll look at how they grew and spread, how they managed their area, and what they did for culture. We'll also talk about their amazing sea travels that made them rich and powerful. From their simple start to their sad end, every part of the Chola dynasty shows how grand they were. So get ready for a fun ride into history. Let's learn about the exciting history of this strong dynasty. The Chola dynasty started in the 9th century in the rich Tamil area of South India. Back then, India was filled with different kingdoms, all wanting to be the most powerful. Among them, the Cholas stood out. They weren't just fighters, but also good leaders, builders. Their story starts with a man named Vijayalaya. Vijayalaya was the founder of the Chola dynasty, and he wasn't famous to begin with. He found a chance to rise to power during a war between two big kingdoms, the Pallava and Pandya. Starting as a helper of the Pallava kingdom, Vijayalaya turned the situation around, kicked them out, and started his own kingdom around the 9th century. After Vijayalaya came Aditya I and Parantaka I, who both did a lot for the Chola dynasty. Aditya I ended the long rule of the Pallavas, and Parantaka I fought to make the Chola lands bigger. These early Chola leaders were not only good fighters but also loved art and culture. They created a time known for its beautiful buildings and great writing. The Brihadisvara temple at Tanjavur, even though it was built later, shows how good the Cholas were at building. The early Cholas also had their share of fights. For example, Parantaka I tried to take over the rich city of Madurai, but faced a lot of pushback. Still, these fights only made the Cholas want to build a stronger kingdom. This time was very important, the Chola dynasty. It set them up to become one of the strongest empires in South India's history. Their rule was marked by good leadership, a lot of conquests, and a rich cultural life. And this was only the beginning. This was the start of a dynasty that would make a big impact on the history of South India. The Cholas started small, but they ended up building a big empire. But how did they do it? It all started because they lived near the Kaveri River, a place with lots of good land for farming. This helped them feed lots of people and build a big army. Their power grew, and so did their dreams. Raja Chola I, who became king in the late 900s, started to make their land bigger. He was a strong and determined leader who won many battles. He took over parts of what we now call Kerala, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh, and even took his power to the Maldives. But their growth didn't stop there. His son, Rajendra Chola I, became king in the early 1000s and followed in his father's footsteps. He even took his army on ships to Southeast Asia, showing that the Cholas were good at sailing too. He added parts of what we now call Myanmar, Malaysia, and Indonesia to their land. This was the first time an Indian kingdom had made its way to Southeast Asia. The Cholas didn't just make their land bigger, they also spread their culture and language, Tamil, to the places they took over. They built beautiful big temples like the Brihadisvara temple in Tanjavur. These were not just places to pray, but also places to learn and experience culture. The temples were decorated with detailed sculptures and carvings, which showed the artistic skills of the Chola period. The times of Raja and Rajendra Chola were really special for the Chola dynasty. They made their land bigger and shared their culture with others, making a lasting impact on the places they ruled. So the Chola dynasty became bigger and stronger. The Cholas were not just fighters, but also lovers of art and books. The Chola dynasty was famous for its very good and orderly system of rule. The empire was split into smaller areas, each led by a leader, and further cut into smaller districts and villages. This way of splitting up the rule helped them run their big territories effectively. The Chola also had a strong system for collecting money, with land taxes being a big part of their income. This money helped them fund their many military, rural, and cultural. But the Cholas were not just about ruling and governing. They were also a lively cultural center. The Chola time was a great time for Tamil culture, known for great works in art, architecture, and books. The Cholas loved learning and arts, adding a lot to the cultural richness of the area. Their contributions building, especially temple building, were very big. The Cholas built large temples, many of which are still standing, showing their great skills in architecture. The Brihadiswara Temple in Tanjavur, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is one of the best examples of Chola architecture. It's not just a place to pray, but also a symbol of the Cholas' artistic and architectural skills. In the area of books, the Chola Times saw the making of a lot of work in Tamil. The Cholas supported Tamil literature, encouraging the writing of religious, philosophical, and everyday life literary works. This resulted in a rebirth of literature, making timeless classics like the Tirukural, a respected guide on ethics and morals, was another area where the Cholas left a big mark. Chola bronzes, known for their beauty and detailed work, are thought to be among the best in the world. These statues, often showing Hindu gods, show the Cholas' great skills in bronze casting and their deep spiritual love. In short, the Cholas were not just rulers, they were makers, inventors, and lovers of culture. They left a rich cultural gift that outlasted their time and place. Their lasting cultural gift continues to inspire and affect people even today. The Cholas weren't just good at taking over, they were also experts at sailing the seas. They knew how to navigate the oceans, build strong ships, and plan smart strategies. The Cholas had a strong navy that helped them control important trade routes in the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea, and the Bay of Bengal. They also sailed beyond India, reaching places like Southeast Asia and even far off China. They didn't just use their ships for fights, they sailed to trade and to share their culture. The Cholas traded things like spices, clothes, and precious stones with different kingdoms. This trade made them rich, and this money let them build big temples and amazing sculptures. It also let them share Indian art, language, and religion with distant lands. But sailing the seas wasn't just about getting rich and sharing their culture. They also wanted to make friends with other strong kingdoms. The Cholas sent special people to China and Southeast Asia to make friends and work together. They also used their strong navy to attack their enemies and protect their lands. One big thing they did was to take over Srivijaya, a kingdom that controlled an important sea route. This showed everyone how strong and clever the Cholas were. So, sailing the seas was very important for the Cholas. It helped them take over lands, trade, share their culture, and make friends. Their skill at sailing really helped them become powerful. Just like all big kingdoms, the Chola dynasty also had to face a downfall. As the 13th century began, the Chola dynasty started losing power. Many things played a role in this downfall, such as fights within the kingdom, money problems, and new powers gaining strength. One big reason for the downfall was the rise of the Pandyas and the Hoysalas. These new powers started taking over the land the Cholas controlled. The Pandyas took back their old lands from the Cholas, making the empire weaker. Inside the Chola dynasty, there were fights over who should rule, which made things worse. The sea trade that had made the Chola rich started to slow down as other countries took over. But remember, every bad time has a good time after it. The downfall of the Chola dynasty, the end of one time. But it also allowed new kingdoms and cultures to grow. Even if the Cholas lost their power, they still influenced arts and culture. Today in South India, especially in Tamil, the Chola dynasty's impact can be felt. Their work in art, writing, and building continues to shape the culture. The big temples they built, like the Brihadiswara temple in Tanjavur, show their greatness and artistic skill. Today, people remember the Chola dynasty for their rule, sea power, and cultural contributions. Their influence traveled beyond India, all the way to Southeast Asia. They made a lasting impact on history, an impact that continues to impress and inspire. Even though they fell, the Cholas left behind a long-lasting impact that still shapes South India. Our trip exploring the history of the Chola dynasty is finished. We've journeyed through the past, from the dynasty's small start in the 9th century to its growth as a strong sea power. We've looked at the detailed ways they ran things, the amazing buildings, and the beautiful art and writing that flourished when they were in charge. We've traveled with them on their brave sea trips and experienced their eventual downfall. But remember, this is only a small peek into the huge history of the Chola dynasty. There's a lot more to learn, ready to be found. Maybe you'll find it in a book, a documentary, or at a place with historical importance. The influence of the Chola dynasty can still be felt today, in the traditions and history of South India. We encourage you to learn more about the interesting history of the Chola dynasty. Thanks for coming with us on this big trip into history. We looked at the Chola dynasty, a strong sea power from South India that left a lasting mark on history. We touched on their rich culture, their leadership skills, and what they achieved in the sea. But remember, history is a huge sea, and there's always more to find out. If you liked this trip, we ask you to look deeper. There are many stories waiting to be found, many tales yet be told. Also, if you want to keep learning and finding new things with us, don't forget to click the subscribe button. You can also find us on social media, where we post more interesting facts about history. How to contact us is in the description below. So until our next trip together, stay interested and exploring history with us.